So this is my 10-year transformation. This is how I went from what you see on the left. This was me around 16, 17. And on the right, these are all photos taken when I was 26 in 2024. Now on the surface level, I don't look that different. I actually don't think I've aged much in 10 years. But there's a very stark difference in the person I used to be and the person I am now. Both externally, in terms of results and achievements, but also, more importantly, internally. You see, the person you see on the left there, with the cystic acne on his face, who you can see in his eyes, he was not confident. He was shy. He was anxious. He was depressed. He was a completely different person. How he viewed himself, his habits, his actions, everything he did on a daily basis, a different person. And on the right-hand side, which I'm going to break down in a moment, this is me now. There's photos of me public speaking, a photo of me after running a marathon, a photo of my hand with my first set of keys for the first property I bought outright. And he is quite a different person. His identity, how he holds himself, how he views himself, his habits, his actions, completely different. So my goal in this video is really simple. I want you to understand this transformation. I'm going to be as vulnerable as I can, and my goal is that by the end of this video, if you are going through anything that old me went through, and you feel any way the same as him, that you now have one source of inspiration, someone who can show you that it is possible. Number two, a pretty clear path, a direction, a guide that you can follow now so that you can change your life once and for all. So old me was criminally shy. I was incredibly nervous in social interactions. I had my small, close group of friends. Outside of that, if you were to put me into a party where there were people that I didn't know or people that I wasn't friendly with, I was nervous as heck. I would stick to the corner, stick with a couple of my friends, and at all costs, I would avoid interacting with anybody new. I'm from Ireland, and when you're 16, 17, and even years quite a bit younger, a lot of people drink, and we drink a lot of alcohol. And for me, a big part of doing this was for confidence, because if I was going to go to a party like that, where my anxiety is through the roof, I'm already really shy, and then I'm now really concerned with how I look because I had a lot of skin problems. I needed something to get me through that. That's what I felt. That's what I believed to be true at that time. So I would drink purely, really for the confidence. Yes, we'd have a good time. As we say in Ireland, we'd have good crack, but it was really for the confidence. My day-to-day life, I was just lethargic. I had no motivation. I always felt tired. And any free time I had outside of school and potentially drinking and going to parties with friends was pretty much spent on video games and watching porn. Now I say this with a lot of, hopefully comes across as humility, because it's not very easy for me to say that. I'm not very proud of what I used to do. But again, my goal with this video is to be honest, be authentic, be real, because this was my reality. If you're watching this, and if you're a guy, specifically if you're a guy, you probably can relate to this. If you're a female, probably had a bit of a different situation. Who am I to judge? Maybe you used to watch a lot of video games and other interesting videos. And on the external, as you can see, I had cystic acne. This started when I was about 16, lasted for over a year, about a year and a half, I believe. And I took this medication called Accutane, which worked. It actually worked really well. I was very cautious to take something like that because it was very strong. And if you Google it, there's a lot of heavy side effects, depression, dry skin, and a lot of other things that come with it. But for me, it was worth it. I felt at this point that one of the biggest things holding me back in life was how I looked. It was my skin, and it was these big mounds on my face, which when you see that photo, I don't know how you'll react. Maybe you'll see that and go, hey, that's actually not so bad. For me, I thought that was disgusting. I thought it was the most horrible thing in the world. I thought I looked absolutely grotesque. And that's a key thing you'll see me talk about. A lot of this was all about how I thought I was perceived. A lot of this was about how I held myself. I rarely had people come up to me and say anything about my skin. I was in an all-boys school where you think someone, in my case, who looked like that would get bullied or would get made fun of. I can recount maybe once or twice where somebody said something, and those people were just, you know what I mean? Those are the people that you knew would do that. They weren't cool. And they're not cool now. Anybody with any self-respect said nothing to me. So it was pretty much all in my head. But nonetheless, I said, look, this Accutane thing, let's give it a go. It worked, okay? Long story short, it worked. It took some time, but it did work. It cleared up my cystic acne. It brought it down completely. And now, I still have loose scars from this, but it's not present. The problem was the dry skin. This was a side effect that I knew was going to be a side effect. And you'll see in that photo, I've got like glossy lips. That's probably Vaseline or something else I was putting on my lips to hydrate them, right? To keep them moist, as they say. And the dry skin, I mean, this was horrible. My lips eventually got to a point where they started to almost crust over, like scabs were growing on my lips, which even saying it now, I'm like, man, that was a different time. So once the acne went, I then had the lips problem, which then at this point, I was no longer in an all-boys school and we were in a mixed school. So now I'm around girls every day of the week, not just when we would maybe go to parties on the weekends. Now it was all the time. So the drink I would use on the weekends at those parties to have some level of confidence was now completely gone. With this medication, I actually couldn't drink. You weren't meant to drink. I tried it once and it felt like my face was going to explode. So I essentially stopped going to parties, disconnected from my friends. They made such good efforts and I would just ignore them as much as I could. And I did not want to go to school because now I had these lips with skin and crust growing in all the wrong ways. Again, I thought I looked disgusting and I thought this was the worst thing in the world. And now, like I said, I'm in a mixed school. I'm around girls every day of the week. So you can just imagine this really shy kid who then has these image problems, right? Thinks he looks worse and just how he feels. This guy right here felt there was no hope. He thought he would never be happy. He thought he'd never be desirable. And it wasn't just a thought, it was a belief. It was not a possibility. That's how strong the belief was. So that's who I was. And where I'm at in these photos that you would have seen. This is roughly 10 years later. I actually got the confidence to put myself out there. I started making social media content on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram. I have an audience of over 400,000 people. Financially, I'm a multi-millionaire. I own 2 properties outright. That means there's no mortgages. It's just paid straight off. I like to do cool shit. Marathons, traveling the world, treating loved ones. Things that genuinely, again, old me wouldn't have thought were possible. He didn't even think he could ever have confidence. Never mind do any of this. I'm now confident in myself. I know who I am. I know my strengths. I know my weaknesses. I know who I'm not. And I'm grounded in that. I'm not trying to be somebody that I'm not. I am being me. And I get to help people. This is really empowering. In fact, this is as empowering. And I get to help people now. This is really empowering. I work with a lot of people that are in situations they don't like. They're in school, they're in college, they're in a job. They don't like it. They know they financially need something else that's going to give them sustenance, that's going to make them 3, 5, 10K per month. That then is going to allow them to do the things they want to actually do in life, whether that's travel, whether that's sports, or whether that's just to work from home because they'd rather work from home versus going into an office with people they hate. I get to help a lot of people do that right now through what I did to do that myself. These photos here where you see me public speaking, this is me teaching what took me from zero and when I went to college and I couldn't get jobs to then starting an online business that made me a good amount of money. So if you can relate to this, if you feel any way like the guy on the left and you want to be any way like the guy on the right, you want to have more money, you want to be financially secure, some would call that financial freedom, or on a personal level, you just feel you are not doing what you know you need to do. You know you are not happy, you're anxious, you're depressed, you're awkward in social situations, you're shy, you're not sure of yourself. If that's how you feel, again, my goal here is to now give you that tangible step-by-step of how do you make the transition? How do you transform yourself? And the cold hard reality is this, okay? Everything I struggled with was my fault. Yes, I had acne that I don't know how that happened. I still have no idea where that came from, but that was my fault. More importantly, what was my fault was how I perceived it, how I reacted to it, how I let it control me, how I didn't take control. And I said, this thing is going to keep me down. I was what they call a victim. Okay, I was a victim. I thought the world didn't want me. I thought I would never be happy. I thought I was never able to achieve happiness, that it just wasn't an option for me, that the cards I was dealt were somehow worse than anybody else I knew. So the harsh reality is that where you are at right now, is based on your identity and who you believe you are and how you view the world around you. You see, when I was this old guy, I had this moment, and I was in the car with my mother, and it was a brisk, sunny day, bright sunny day in Ireland, but it was cold, sometime in the winter. And I had just come back from this dermatology appointment, and this was when the acne had cleared up on my face, but I had the issue with my lips. Okay, so one problem gone, another problem has just entered the building. And during this dermatology appointment, the skin on my lips was crusting over, and I thought that was somehow healing itself, and that it might be good to try and leave it for a bit of time, and then it would eventually fall off like a normal scab. The dermatologist told me that was a terrible idea, worst thing you could do, and essentially just ripped it all off, which, as you can imagine, was very painful. It meant that I didn't have the layer of skin that you have on your lip. I had the layer below that, which meant it was pretty much raw, which of course is very painful. But more importantly was how I reacted to this. This felt like my world was shattering. I thought that what I was doing was actually making progress. I thought I was healing myself in a sense. And I was just told that all of that was going to be reset. So you've got to think, in my brain, I was thinking that whole process, which might have been months of letting that skin build up to scab and then essentially heal itself, I thought was being thrown in the fucking bin. I thought it was being taken from me. And I had this really vivid moment, and as I'm sitting in the car with my mother after this appointment, the sun is blaring in the windows. And I mean, it just caught my eye, right? Like, I look up, sun blares in the windows, and I start crying. I start weeping. I start bawling. And, God bless my mother. Like, she sat through that and just comforted me, and, didn't try and force me to do anything, just listened. And it was in that moment, that was my pivotal moment. That was the point where it changed for me, because nothing changed on the outside. I still looked the same. I still felt that I was not the person I wanted to be. But the change was that I realized it was all my fault. Barely anybody was coming up to me in person and saying, "Hey, Adam, you're this and you're that." It was me. I was the one telling myself that I was disgusting, that I was not attractive, that I was never going to be happy. That was all me. You see, I was feeling like a victim. And it was in that moment where I actually decided, okay, yeah, I am the problem here. And if I'm the problem here, that means I'm also the one in control here, which is really empowering. Because if I'm in control, I can change, right? I have the power to change. And I realized that I could change on a very basic level to start off with. I could change my habits. I could change my actions. I could change what I was doing each day. I could essentially change a lot of little things in the day. I could get up at a certain time. I could start working out more. I could eat cleaner foods. I could start meditating. I could look into breath work. I could do some yoga and stretching. Right? A lot of things that you might be hearing thinking, how does that fix the problem? You see, that did fix the problem, because what I was doing is I was taking very small steps, little things that I could do to improve myself. You see, that's the key there. I was now actually aware that I could improve. I could become better. And guess what? Doing those things made me feel better, right? I would do things that you probably think is just cliche. I would take cold showers. And guess what? Made me feel better, because I was now doing things that I didn't want to do. Let's be real. It was painful. It was annoying. It was an inconvenience. But I felt good about myself for doing it. And so this transformation, that's where it started. It started with a moment of realization that it is all my fault, and that means I have all the power and I can now change. And secondly, that is then backed up by massive action. You see, I went pretty much cold turkey on a lot of things. Old me was spending a lot of time watching pornography, and I would watch it a few times. In fact, not a few times a week, probably every day. So I cut it out completely. I just didn't watch it for a year straight. And obviously, my friends at the time thought I was insane and thought it was kind of stupid, but I was determined. At this point, I had seen through the eye of the needle. I could see the reality. I had that moment. I had a calling. I had whatever you want to label it as. Something happened where it clicked. And I realized, no, I can do this. Like, I can stop all the bad things that are holding me back, that are polluting my brain, that are wasting my energy. And I can put all of that new time and that energy and that effort into productive stuff. And so as I went then throughout the next few years, I went to college. When I was in college, I went to Mexico for 2 months on this kind of exchange program where I lived with a Mexican family. I taught English in the local school. When I say local school, I mean this was a tiny, tiny town. I was the only non-Mexican person there. I lived with that family for 2 months. They didn't speak English, so I just had to get better and pretty much get fluent in Spanish. I think I was 19 at the time. It was my first big trip away. I remember telling my mother, and she said, "Hey, don't go. That's crazy. Don't go to Mexico." And because I had this moment, had this realization that I am the one in control, I went and I said, "I'm going to go. I'm going to do it." Later on, about a year later, through college, I went on a semester abroad. So I spent 4 months in Singapore, which again was the other side of the world. It felt like a whole new experience. I did a month of solo travel through Thailand and bits of Asia when I was there. And so I started to do all these things that old me never would have done, never would have even thought he could do. And it was almost like this competition with myself. If I could just do more things that felt almost more extreme to show myself that I could do these things and I could survive in these situations. And then when I started to get to the end years of college, I had this situation where I could go and try and apply to jobs, which I did. And I applied to jobs and I didn't get any because my heart wasn't really in it. I didn't truly want the jobs. I wanted to run an online business. I had always been trying to do something online. When I was in school, when I was in college, I was always doing something. None of them were ever wildly successful, but they got me by. And I always knew there was a thing I could do. I didn't know what it was, some type of online business that was going to give me the freedom that I urgently and desperately wanted. Because you got to see, when I was going through this transformation, the thoughts of then getting a job where I'd have to basically conform to somebody else's rules and not be the one in control was actually really scary for me. And so I was pretty determined I would do anything that I needed to do to be able to not do that. So before my final week of exams, I took on a client for freelance marketing. And now this was a pretty intense client because they wanted me to do about 40 hours per week. I was paid hourly. And I did this right before my exams. And it was a now or never moment. I took it. I said, fuck it. Who cares? If I don't do as well in my exams, that's fine. But you know what? I'll still do what I need to do. I'll study as much as I need to study, and I'll do my 40 hours a week with this company. No problem. Let's get it done. And I did. That's exactly what I did. And it was the best decision I ever made. Because then later that year, I started a marketing agency. And I started this with a guy I knew. And we were going to go into this as business partners. And it kicked. I mean, it worked really well. That's why I've been able to now teach people how to do what I did, how to get clients for their marketing agency. Because that business, quite frankly, was life-changing. It gave me enough money and security to obviously save a lot of that and have a really good base. But more importantly, it gave me the skills. I now knew how to do this. I knew how to get clients. I knew how to get paid by businesses to manage their social media pages. I knew how to build a team of people that would do most of the work, that would manage the pages for my clients, and I would get paid a premium. I would get paid a hefty profit for basically orchestrating and organizing the whole thing. And that just, again, this just kept on going. I was just obsessed then with getting better financially and personally. And I took a lot of that old energy I used to have, that old anxious energy, that old energy of just being worried about things. And I fucking funneled that in to my business. I just went all in. I didn't get a job. Within a year of graduating college, I had a business that was a probably at this point, a multi-six-figure a year business. And what's pretty cool about it now is I was able to exit that business. So I had a business partner. I sold my half to him. And I exited at a point where we had done over $1 million in revenue. And for me, that was a big milestone. I felt like I had achieved a lot of what I wanted to achieve. And from that point, then I had this kind of more drive towards helping people. I had already started to coach and consult and teach some people how to do what I did when I was running my marketing agency. And then when I got the opportunity to sell, it really just opened my eyes to say, hey, this is your next thing. Like, this is the next path you're going to go down. And this is what I do now, and I do it full time. And I absolutely fucking love it. Because I get to help people that have gone through what I've gone through. I get to help people that haven't gone through what I've gone through, but are just in situations or in a job that they really do hate and they want more freedom. And that's really empowering as well. And so I'm trying to make this video concise, and I tried to give you a lot of points that you can take away from this. And I hope that you get the message of this video. This transformation, which for me, this is a 10-year transformation, this all happens with that one moment where you decide this is it. This is the point where there's no going back. This is the point where you have to change. And that's not easy to do. You're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to doubt yourself. You're going to think, can I really do this? Is this really for me? But you have to do it. And this is me calling out to you. You have got to do it. If you're watching pornography and you don't, and you know you shouldn't be doing it, stop doing it. If you're putting yourself as a victim, putting yourself down, saying the world is out to get you, stop doing it. If you're not exercising, right? You're not eating clean. Fucking hell, gotta change it. And so these are harsh pills to swallow. But I hope, again, that my goal has been achieved with this video. I hope that this can kind of act as, if you've gone through something like this, you know, a model of inspiration, somebody you can say, hey, well, if that guy can do it, I can do it, right? And also that you now have a bit of a clear path. And I don't want you to get caught up in the semantics of, Adam, do I take cold showers? Or, you know, what if do I do cold showers? Or, you know, do I have to cut out video games completely? Do what you've got to do. If you want me to make a second video going into more of these specifics and what I do recommend based on most people's situation, let me know. Give me feedback on this video and I can make that happen. But the main thing is that you just got to realize that you now have to change. It's been a pleasure. If you want to know more about my story, you can watch through my channel, you can watch through my stuff. And if you're new here, I look forward to hopefully seeing you around in the next one.